that are on the Atlantic Beach District where they would like to see improvements made. I think we did that, right?
We did that, yes, because they came in. That I remember.
To me, it's got to be parking,
Yeah,
you know?
but we have the school parking lot. You know, for weekends.
I wonder how many people know about that.
I think a few, because I've been there on weekends and you see cars parked there.
Okay.
But are they parked there officially, Lee?
No,
Okay, enough said.
as I've said,
Am I
yeah.
muted or am I on?
You're on, John.
Hi,
Hello,
John.
Isabel. That's Isabel Mark. Hello, Isabel. I just
Hello,
talked-
Isabel. Welcome.
You're muted.
You're muted, Isabel.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. I've
Hi,
spoken
David.
to
There's,
John earlier.
there's the king of the hill right here.
David, you're muted.
Unmute, David.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
I'm
Hi,
unmuted.
David.
I'm unmuted now. Hello, everybody.
Oh,
Hi,
hi,
David.
David. Another, there's two
Both
Davids.
are now
Hello.
unmuted.
I've never seen so many people at a meeting. It's nice.
It's a full house.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful day. That's
I
a
We don't have
sentiment.
our chairman. Where's our chair?
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Dave. Nice to
David,
see you
hello.
on this beautiful day.
We're right
And there's
next
our new
to-
member. Hello, Valerie.
Hi,
Hi,
Barbara.
Valerie. You're on
Hi,
mute,
Valerie.
Valerie. You're unmuted. There you go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Beautiful
afternoon.
day.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Hello.
You decided to shave, David.
No, I didn't.
Fun part of it, that you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look older.
That's just a little holiday.
And wiser, David, wise. Very important.
Yes, and wiser. Thank you, John.
Wiser.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi, Valerie. Nice
Thank
to
you.
nice. I always never know what to say. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Thank you for all that information. That was very helpful.
I think there is some good information with the Secretary of State's office. So
Yeah,
as
I went online. I
Yeah.
got quite a bit, but it's trying to get the breakout of who those are. Yeah.
Oh, Tom. Oh, wait, we're recording. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Hey, you know, there's protocols.
Good catch, Leanna.
Had to look first.
There's our chair. Hello, chair.
Hello, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Oops.
You're muted, Bob.
And we lost your video.
Relaunch.
With unmute and start with the video. How's that?
That's
hear me?
That's good, Bob.
Boy, it's going to be a long time and hell's going to freeze over before I learn all of these new devices for Zoom. If I never have another Zoom meeting in my life, I'd be the happiest person in the world, but that's okay. How's everybody doing?
Oh, just fine.
Good.
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 And you?
Today wasn't a good day.
Oh,
I got to start some physical therapy for my neck and my back. It's being a little bit balky, but what else is new for the last 35, 40 years? You know, we're getting there. We're getting there. Don't feel
Day at a-
sorry for me. I've got
day
a
at a
great
time.
life. How we doing, Ron, on quorum and
We're good.
whatnot?
We're good,
We're
Bob.
good?
Yep, we have a full house. The only one missing is Erin, and I assume Isabel, that Erin probably won't be joining us. Is that right?
I believe she will try to join us, but
Okay.
she has a tight schedule. So I'll be representing Connect Grading for it.
Okay, so we don't need to wait. We can just.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
so you're not Elizabeth Marsh, right?
Isabel.
Okay,
Isabel.
Isabel.
Yeah.
Isabel.
You're close.
Hey, that's about as good as I'm going to get today. Well, I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for joining in this format. And welcome everyone, including David Dittman, who I haven't had the pleasure of introducing to the MEDAC board because he wasn't at the last meeting. And I believe is Valerie Gelbon as well.
I am
Good.
Bob.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank
uh,
you.
And I think that you know of the other members of the board, and we're ready to go do some work. Well, this is the May 12th meeting, and we can start by addressing the approval of the minutes of the April 14th regular meeting that we had. I think Ron has distributed those to everyone. If there are any corrections to be made, I'm listening. Otherwise, Chair will entertain a motion to accept them.
So moved.
Second,
So moved in second. Please signify by saying aye. We won't go through a roll call. Aye, all in
Aye.
favor.
aye.
Aye.
There's a vast majority of ayes to approve the minutes. Ron, how about the update on regional and state responses to COVID-19 business impacts at this point?
Do you want to do that now, or do we want to follow the agenda? Because next on the agenda is the Easton's Pond presentation.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong agenda. Not the updated. Yes, I'm corrected. The Easton Pond proposal with Miss Welch
Yep.
is on. Is she with us?
She is.
And,
Hello,
Let me.
Melissa.
hello,
Hi, Melissa.
hi.
Hello.
There's Melissa. So I see you now, as they
Great.
say. Welcome, Melissa, and thank you for making yourself available to share with us your research and whatnot. I asked Ron to put this matter on the agenda because Melissa had done some detailed research with respect to the Aquidneck district and the attempt that we've been trying to push forward with upgrading the Atlantic Beach district, so to speak, and the overhead lines and whatnot. So I believe, Ron, you distributed Melissa's white paper
Right. Yep,
to everyone. So
the
everyone should
information
have
she-
that. Yep.
And Melissa, you have the ability to share your screen. I didn't know if you wanted to do that PowerPoint presentation or,
Yes, I do. If I
Yeah.
can do that now.
sure, go
Yes,
ahead.
please proceed.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and just jump right into it if that's okay with everybody.
Go right ahead.
All right, we're going to go full screen. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Silva, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address MEDAC today. And I also want to thank John Bagwell, who expressed interest in the proposal and raised it for MEDAC's attention. So thanks, John. First, I want to provide a little background. I know some of you had seen my initial proposal that I briefed to the Middletown Town Council back on the 5th of April. And the reason I put this proposal together is that I'm very interested in this area. I live nearby and I really want to see it live up to its potential. In fact, back in 2018, I attended the public hearing that introduced this Atlantic Beach District streetscape, and I thought it looked terrific, very exciting. It was a little disappointing to hear that it would probably be quite a while before we'd even get on the list of the Transportation Improvement Program for the state, the TIP. And then just recently we learned that the estimate for undergrounding utilities in the area had increased significantly. So that really got me thinking, what else could we do in this area to really show some improvements? And I realized that the current plan focuses on this lower Aquidneck Avenue area, and yet there's another area that's just a little bit off the beaten path that could be utilized to achieve this vision of a pedestrian-friendly commercial village that would serve both residents and visitors and benefit the town overall. And this is what I called the hidden gem of the Atlantic Beach District. Now, this is the area that is between the berm of Easton's Pond and the back of the businesses, restaurants, hotels along Lower Quidneck Avenue and Wave Avenue. And if we take a closer look at that area, you can see it's a pretty substantial amount of land, but it's rather unsightly, currently being just overlooked and underutilized. So that got me thinking, what if this area could look like this? Or in the other direction, what if this could look like this? And that's how I got the idea for the Easton's Pond Boardwalk that could truly become a focal point for the Atlantic Beach District. A boardwalk would serve to draw people off of Quidneck Avenue and connect them with the local businesses while encouraging them to spend time and explore what's really a beautiful corner of Middletown. And today, as I know you know, this area is not really that inviting either for locals or visitors. You might come down for a specific purpose, but you're not likely to want to spend the afternoon here. For example, you might stop off at Cumberland Farms to gas up, but you probably wouldn't be inclined to stroll down Quidneck Avenue, visit an art gallery, or get an ice cream cone. At least that's kind of how I felt about it. Now, if you're a tourist and you're staying at one of the local hotels, you have to ask, would you take your family for a walk, along busy Quidneck Avenue, let alone push a stroller down one of these sidewalks? Now, I know the streetscapes plan is going to address these issues, and I think that's great. My boardwalk proposal would in no way replace that. In fact, I think it would tie in really well and actually complement the overall plan. But it would be a real plus to have the boardwalk in place before they start tearing up Quidneck Avenue. So just to recap in a nutshell, the boardwalk, as I see it, would provide a significant public benefit by creating a safe and attractive place for people to reach local businesses and enjoy this beautiful outdoor space. But I know people have questioned, why bother with a boardwalk? Why not just do something like on the Newport side, building a walkway on top of the embankment? So let me just briefly touch on the pros and cons of that idea. So just as I'm sure some of you know, that walkway on top of the berm was a really extensive project, and it started after a storm in 2007 caused severe damage to parts of the embankment. You can see they had to bring in heavy equipment. They had to build like a temporary levee to hold back the water to be able to install that concrete riprap. And this took over 5 years to complete and cost about $4.5 million. So really an extensive project. Now, still, when you compare the built-up version on the Newport side to the Middletown side, you might say, well, doesn't the Middletown side need to be repaired? And that's an excellent question. And I think it's really important to have that discussion with the City of Newport Water Division. They're the experts in this area. As we can see, the embankment is degraded, the moat is overgrown. But I was able to access a couple of studies, one in 2007, another in 2019, that suggested that this eastern side of the embankment might only require more limited repairs. And some of that work has already been done. So if you look here, this is the northeast corner of Easton's Pond. So on the right-hand side, what you're looking at is that spillway between the north and the south Easton's Pond. And on the left, you're looking south, going toward First Beach, essentially. And you can see, and I took this picture just a couple weeks ago. So the moat has been dug out. The embankment has been built up to some extent, not as much as on the Newport side. But interestingly, when I checked out the permit application back in 2016, it was only for this work extends about 450 feet. So going south, about to the end of the Seawell Hotel property. And so that's where this dugout moat ends. If this work were to be continued, then presumably that water could continue flowing freely and not be like a stagnant pond as it is right now. But as you know, the earlier photos I showed, that part of the moat is overgrown and filled in. So this is a question of, what could be the future here? If we could get that water flowing and do that buildup of the embankment and digging out the moat, boardwalk would go either on top of or alongside the moat here. And again, it would not be touching or on top of the embankment. So another thing to consider is, if you look at the walkway that is on top of the embankment, you can see that both people and their dogs are in close proximity to our drinking water supply. The study I mentioned in 2007 recommended against this and cited concerns about damage to the embankment, as well as the effect of dog waste that gets into the moat and can contribute to the high bacteria levels through the runoff that gets down to the beach. By contrast, the boardwalk is outside of the embankment, not on top of it. So it would actually serve to keep people off the berm and away from the drinking water supply. And another issue that's illustrated in this picture is that the walking path physically separates people from the land on the other side of the moat, which is fine in this case because it's residential and houses on that side. But in the Atlantic Beach District, we don't want people to be stranded up on the berm. We want to facilitate their access to local businesses. So the boardwalk by design provides that link. So if we think about what might a boardwalk actually look like, I searched around for some examples and I really like this one. This is the boardwalk at the Audubon Center in Bristol. If you haven't been there, it's really beautiful, worth a visit. This boardwalk is 8 feet wide. It's about 1,600 feet long, and it was designed and built in such a way to avoid damaging the sensitive wetland substrate underneath it. I contacted this company, Caputo & Wick, and I talked to the lead for this project. His name's Scott Hobson, the director of environmental planning there. And he explained to me that the way this boardwalk was built was first a platform was constructed, and then they put their heavy equipment, essentially a backhoe, on top of that platform. Then from the platform, they put in the next set of pylons and the planks and moved forward on the platform and then kept doing that. Put in the pylons, more planks, move forward on the platform. So they never have to put the heavy equipment on the ground in the mud in that substrate. And even though this is a sensitive environmental area, this project was approved by CRMC, DEM, and US Army Corps of Engineers. So returning to our Easton's Pond area, I also wanted to look at some of the existing structures. This is the ramp on the Newport side. So you can kind of get a sense of how this structure too is raised up on pylons to go over the moat. And then if you look on the right-hand side, you can see that ramp that's going parallel to the moat. So that kind of gives you an idea of what might be possible in this area. But I also want to highlight with this picture that in order to make a ramp, an access ramp that is that meets the requirements for disabled access, it's a pretty large footprint. So we really would need the space to be able to put in an access ramp like that. And that ties into another point that I think is really critical to the success of this project, and that is parking. I heard someone talking about this just before we started. Parking is a significant concern in this area. I know for a fact that in the summer, there's definitely not enough parking. And so I highlighted this area, which is the lots where Rusty's and some adjacent cottages are currently located. And I know that this lot is owned by some local businessmen who already have substantial investments in the area, hotels and restaurants. But perhaps with the right approach, with a little imagination, perhaps they might consider working with the town and with the community to develop a parking area and a boardwalk access point that would not only benefit this area, but benefit their businesses as well. And if you see in that box down the bottom, I suggest eco-friendly materials like permeable pavers and native plantings that would filter the runoff and that could help us tap into funds that are available for environmental improvement projects. And that leads me to talk about the other really important issue, and of course that is money. If you saw my read ahead material, you might have seen that addendum. I included a list of potential resources, both public and private foundations that could be sources of funds potentially. But I really wanted to focus on this RI state bond. This is the one that was voted for in March, $74 million. And the few categories I highlighted here, I really think that we could make a strong case for this project, particularly in terms of community recreation opportunities and improving water quality by addressing stormwater runoff as part of the plan. So in terms of where do we go from here? Just a few thoughts on some next steps, and this is an incomplete list. I'm sure there's many other things to consider. But a feasibility study would be a great starting point because we really need to, I'm no engineer, we really need to determine what's possible and even more importantly, what is permissible, what is going to be allowed. And having a feasibility study would also give us a great kind of package to help engage potential backers and donors. Equally important is that engaging stakeholders, and top of the list would have to be the City of Newport Water Division, as this is their area of responsibility of Easton's Pond and the surrounding embankment. But as I mentioned, we also really need to talk with local businesses, property owners, to get their input and hopefully buy-in. And I think engagement with the community and public is really important, because this shouldn't be a project that is just something for tourists. It's really for all of us who live here, who enjoy this area, and it should be something to benefit the community overall. And of course, funding, as I touched on, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there that we need to explore before we tap into taxpayer funds. We need to make the optimal use of possible resources that are available. So just to wrap things up, there's lots of other points I'd really love to discuss, but I want to leave you with this closing vision of what could be the Easton's Pond boardwalk in the Atlantic Beach District. Would be a great asset and public benefit to the community. So I very much appreciate your time and the opportunity to address the MEDAC, and I would welcome your questions and comments. Thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, thank.
Bob, you might be muted.
Yes.
Yes, I am again.
There you go.
All right. Sorry, thanks, Terry. That was an extremely well organized presentation and very, very informative. I thank you, Melissa, for putting that together, especially the presentation with slides. It really gives us an idea of how beautiful that area could be at this point in time. It does not deal with what has been our main focus, namely trying to obtain funding and permission to put the overhead lines underground on Aquidneck Avenue itself. That's a project which has experienced a number of setbacks, especially with the increased cost of doing so, as estimated by the National Grid. But I would suggest that we open this up for comment by all members of the board. I was impressed.
I'm
sorry.
Okay.
Bill, huh? I forgot to tell him.
Bob?
Yes,
Melissa, for parking, we have the Aquidneck School
Mhm.
close by, and I know throughout the summer sometimes we have cars there on weekends. And I'm sure people have found out that they could park there and then just walk down to the business district. That could be a possibility. You would have to talk to the school board, but that is something. I mean, we would, we
Yes.
would be open for discussion on that.
I think that's a great idea, and especially if there were maybe if the pathway to get down to this area were a little more clear cut, so people would know kind of where they're going. That might be signage or something like that, or even some kind of shuttle. But yes, that's a great resource that could definitely tie into this.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
thank you, Lee. Anybody else? John Bagwell trying to,
Valerie has her hand up.
Yeah.
Valerie, go ahead, Valerie.
Yeah, thank you for that, Melissa. That was excellent information. Some ideas, and this has probably been raised already, but if we couldn't do the undergrounding on the Aquidneck side, could possibly the wires go under this structure that goes around the pond? And then ultimately, it's my understanding, Ron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but where, let's see, just before we get to Valley, that station was going to go away from National Grid, and perhaps that becomes the entrance, and then you're not far from the school. So it becomes a natural flow. It's just an idea.
Yeah, so interestingly, that substation, I assume there's an easement, but it appears to be located on City of Newport land. So and the City of Newport land goes right to that intersection, Valley and Aquidneck. So there is again, as Melissa said, we have to start probably with a conversation with Newport Water. But that is public land that goes right up to the street there.
What is
and
the timetable on the removal of that structure? They're in the process of doing it in Portsmouth.
Yeah,
I don't know about Newport.
I'm not sure exactly. I can look into that.
Okay, if you would, Ron. Tom? Are
Yeah,
you,
there are two questions. One, Melissa,
Yep.
is the presentation available for distribution, or are you keeping it?
I'm happy to make it available. I think maybe, Ron, what I could do is send you a link to share, and you could send it out to the committee members.
Sure. And this
And-
meeting is actually on YouTube right now, so you can just Google
Okay.
Middletown Economic Development Committee,
Okay, good.
and you should be able to find it.
Good,
But yeah,
good.
if you can send me the PowerPoint, Melissa, I can get that out to everybody.
Yes, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say that I'll send my slides or to share them. And I do have a backup slide with an idea of how conduit could go under a boardwalk. I just have a couple of pictures as an example. I think it's definitely something to look at. The practicalities of that are sort of beyond my ability to imagine, but I think it's definitely something worth looking into. So thank you for raising that. I'm sorry, sir, please.
So two parts of the next request. One is we have some funding available
Mhm.
to look at improvements in that particular district of the town. I believe that there's still some available. And I would be a proponent of taking your first step and coming up with a feasibility study, if in fact the rest of the members thought that was appropriate.
John, you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
There you go.
Good.
I think at this point, Melissa needs to have as a first step a conversation with the people in Newport. The last thing we want is to have them perceive that we're moving ahead and say, hey, wait a minute, got to talk to me. I think it's a terrible idea and I'm going to stop it right here. Or they could say, very interesting. You don't know, but we just need to, that's my suggestion is you need to, I think, talk to them and I think CRMC at some point, because CRMC apparently controls the land, the dirt, if you will, between the berm and the buildings, a good portion of that. So it's just a matter of talking to the two stakeholders that really could say, great idea, but as they say, don't even think about parking here. But they, on the other hand, they might encourage you to, hopefully, to go ahead, to think about it, develop more facts. We're not going to make a decision until we learn more about what you have in mind. But I think on that matter, Bob, at this point, Melissa's kind of a free spirit. She's gone out on her own. She's collected some information, but I think that she needs an authority, may be too strong a word, but and a blessing doesn't seem to be. This is not related to religion, but I think that she needs somehow to have MEDAC support, approval, if you will, as a volunteer to gather information and to talk to stakeholders about this project. Otherwise, she's kind of out there on her own, which she has been up to this point. But now it moves from just a vision and to perhaps gathering some key information. And I think she needs to introduce herself to these people as a volunteer working with the instruction of MEDAC to gather information to present to MEDAC.
Ron? Or Mr. Chair? My apologies.
Sorry, go right ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, after reading the exchanges of the emails earlier this week, I thought Sean was going to reach out to Joe Nicholson, and I was wondering if, and we had heard from him yet on that, Ron.
He has, as of yesterday, I think, talked with Joe, but I don't think, at least I haven't heard back yet. We were thinking that maybe Joe or someone else from the Newport Water Department would be attending this meeting, but it appears that they're not here. So I would have to circle back with Sean to see if he got any response from Joe.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good first step.
I I had suggested that Melissa reach out to Joe today. So I simply was going to get a phone number for Melissa to reach out to. And of course, when you start talking to somebody in the government, they say, who are you and why are you calling? So as it turned out, I explained who I was and why I was calling. And I told them about this thing, and this was, Melissa had a vision, and there was no effort on our part to proceed any farther than we have, or Melissa didn't, without first having a very in-depth conversation with the people who own the reservoir. That's the Newport Water Department. And I spoke to a secretary or somebody who made herself available and said she understood and would share this position with Joe, and that we were not kind of moving ahead without their approval. It was simply a vision from Melissa. And the next step, of course, was to talk to Joe. So she said, I'm sure that he would welcome a conversation with Melissa. So that was the contact that I expected Melissa to make, but it ended up they wanted to know why I was calling. So
I guess that would support perhaps maybe Melissa checking in with Sean to see what's been done already. We don't want to duplicate efforts or, have these folks' time double being spent twice on the same introductory conversation. So is that, what does the committee think about having Melissa talk to Sean as follow-up and then proceed from there, knowing that MEDAC, do we think this is this has potential as a group?
I would suggest from the perspective of protocol that Melissa should at least at the outset meet with Sean Brown. I don't want to give Sean any more responsibility and work that he already has. But I think that the town administrator in Middletown should be fully apprised of this, participate with the presentation. And then I'd like some feedback from Sean as to his suggestion as to what the next step should be. If he thinks that Melissa should meet with Joe Nicholson's office or representatives from the Newport Water Department, I would be comfortable having Sean arrange that rather than MEDAC. I mean, we're advisory in nature only, and it's the council and Sean that make all the decisions, so to speak. So from my perspective, I would be more than willing to have Melissa meet up with Sean and have Sean give us a feedback as to how he thinks we should proceed.
3 cheers, Robert. That's
a good idea.
Wise
agree.
words.
We need a motion for that, or is that just we all agree?
I would prefer a motion,
So moved.
So is there a second to the so
I
moved?
second it. I second it.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded to arrange to have Melissa meet with town manager Sean Brown to explain her proposal and then to get feedback from Sean as to how we should next proceed to engage the city of Newport and or the water department with respect to the concept presented by Melissa. Any discussions on the motion as seconded? Hearing none.
Dave
All
Dittman,
those.
Bob, hold on. Dave Dittman and Tom both have their hands up.
Okay, Dave Dittman, go first, please.
I had a quick question, and that is, first of all, being raised on the Jersey Shore, having a boardwalk, I think is really exciting. But my question is, if somebody asks us, is this our direction we're taking with Atlantic Beach? I mean, we're putting all our eggs in one basket, or what is going on there? I mean, and that's my question, because I'm not up to date on the Atlantic Beach, but if you see where I'm coming from, it looks like we're putting all our eggs in one basket, which I think is a great basket, incidentally. But do we want to make any other adjustments to say, here's our approach that we're taking? What do you think? We're going to do this, this, and this, or are we just going to do this and forget everything else?
No, I don't think that we're forgetting everything else. As I try to indicate at the outset, it appears that this proposal is somewhat separate and apart from what we've been working on in connection with the upgrade of the Atlantic Beach district with the overhead wires and whatnot. I don't see anything that would prevent us from going forward with this project, or at least investigating whether it's feasible, and not pulling back on anything else we're doing. So I don't see that as a problem, but that's just my opinion.
So to your point, it's investigating the feasibility is what you're doing.
That's right. Yep. And including Sean Brown in the mix, and asking him to give his advice as to how we should proceed. And I would think after you get this before Newport and get feedback from Newport, Tom Kowalczyk's suggestion that there be some kind of study, engineering study as to what it would cost and what could it be done. And Tom, you did mention the fact that there were funds available. What funds were you referring to?
The ones that came about by that initiative to identify the Atlantic Beach District as a economic development district and take the tax revenue increase to fund projects in the area.
That's the TIF.
Yeah, Frank.
TIF, yeah. Okay. Ron, could you look into whether or not the TIF monies that been segregated to date, with the council's permission and approval, could that be used to fund some kind of a look-see proposal from an engineering perspective?
I think
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I think the wording of the TIF is such that, technically the funding could be used for something like this. It's just a matter of, does the town wish to go in that direction? So,
right.
Yeah, I think once we get to that point, if we get to that point, I think the funding could certainly be used for this type of project. It is within the district and it is an economic development effort.
Good. I'm all in favor of baby steps. So we should get Melissa in touch with Sean Brown or vice versa, have them discuss things, and then Sean instruct us as how he thinks we as an advisory committee should proceed.
So you have a motion and it's been seconded.
Seconded. Yeah, there was another hand to.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, also, you're good? Fine.
Yep.
Then all those in favor signify please by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody against it? Then it was unanimous. Okay. Thank you so much, Melissa. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Melissa.
it.
Thank you
We'll
very
be in
much.
touch. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to continue to listen as a member of the public, so I'll take off my screen.
Absolutely. That's
Thank you.
much encouraged. All right. Now, going on to the agenda as previously issued, regional and state response to COVID business impacts. Ron, do you have anything to share with us on that?
So Bob, I don't want to keep correcting you, but the next item on the agenda is actually the discussion of the undergrounding. You might be looking at that last month's
I'm looking
agenda.
at the last year. Maybe I should just say, Ron, what's the next matter to be considered? Go right ahead.
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is discussion of the undergrounding of utilities. And you'll remember that where we left off on this discussion last time with Ken Farrar was that he was going to, Jim Farrar. He was going to reach out to his contacts with National Grid to get some feedback from them as to potential alternatives and talk about the cost estimates that they provided and really just try to get from his perspective more information from them. And after that meeting, I did speak with Jim and gave him the town's contact for National Grid, and he basically said, well, I've got people I can talk to. So he was going to reach out to them, but I haven't heard back from Jim yet. So we're waiting on that. And then of course the council continued this conversation until June anyway. So we're still in a bit of a holding pattern, and I can reach out to Jim and see if he's heard back from National Grid.
Okay. Well, I'll also coordinate my efforts. I'll be working with Jim. I am working with Jim on the YMCA program, and I have to put a call into him this week. So I'll just remind him that you'll be looking for him, and maybe you can have him give you an update as such. Okay?
Sounds good.
What's next on the agenda,
So
Ron?
the next item is the West Main Codington redevelopment.
Okay.
So if any of you have been tuned into what's been going on with town council discussion of this, it was brought back by Councilor Von Villis and Councilor Welch at the last meeting for additional conversation of reissuing the request for information. And you'll recall this was a solicitation that went out over a year ago now. We only got one response from a potential developer. And the goal is to get as much input as we can from potential developers to look at development options for that West Main Codington property. So at the request of the two councilors, the council had the discussion and ultimately voted to authorize the administration to proceed with the issuance or the reissuance of the RFI to try again to solicit more input. So we're going to be working, and that vote was last week, I guess. We're going to be working with Fourth Economy, who is the consultant that works very closely with the chamber and Connect Greater Newport. Rich Overmeyer, he's going to be helping us update that RFI, take a look at distribution efforts, and we'll talk with him about who was contacted last time, and is there an opportunity to maybe broaden the distribution somehow. We're actually, Sean and I are meeting with him tomorrow. So that's the good news, I guess, is that there's some additional effort that will be taken to get some input on redevelopment opportunities. And it was very clear from the council that there's no decisions being made in the immediate term. It's simply an effort to get some information from developers, get some ideas on the table for the town council to think about and discuss.
Do you remember, Ron, who the developer was that was the only respondee to the last?
It was Chris Bisho, Landings Real Estate Group.
Okay, and he's involved with the second group that's interested in meeting with the council and responding. Is that correct?
I think that's the same group. So
okay,
what,
all right.
His submission, I think, remains on file, so to speak. I don't know if he'll choose to submit some additional documentation or additional information. If he has new partners or whatnot, he might choose to do that. But yeah, we're looking to, again, hopefully get some other ideas as well as to what could be done with that property.
The RFI will include proposed plans that we've developed with the help of VHB. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily. We've informed the potential respondents of that work that's been done in the past, and it's all posted on the website, and we're making that available to anyone who might be interested in the property. But we're certainly not saying that they have to come in with something that is basically what we've already talked about. We're looking for really anything outside of the box ideas and anything that people wish to propose that that they feel might be a benefit to the town and would be feasible. That's what it all comes down to too. We can do all the planning and design work that that was done over the past 10 years, but if a project that we had envisioned is not economically feasible, it's not going to happen. So that's really why we're hoping to get some sort of ground truthing of our of the work that we've done and get some, hopefully some other ideas on the table as well.
Right. So I just want us to realize that we're not bound by whatever the past resulted in a proposal for that particular area. I have often said that the town is not a very good economic developer per se. You need the private sector to tell you what is or what isn't possible, because it's a bottom line effort. If it's not feasible to build it and to maintain it, it just isn't going to happen no matter what the town wants done. So I'm delighted that the council has authorized a second effort in this regard. And let's hope it's more productive this time around than it was last time. Any comments on Ron's
Valerie
information?
Valerie had her hand up. No, you all set?
Valerie?
Well, if there's just information that MEDAC has put together regarding this development, because if we're looking for, I understand the commercial viewpoint, but as a community, I'm sure MEDAC or someone has had ideas about what you envision in order to meet, right, the needs of our community. Also, so if is it involving multi-level income housing? I know it has residential and mixed use.
Yeah.
But if one of our major goals is to have housing for families to be able to move here and to live here and to maintain full-time residence, we also have to get affordable housing. So I just didn't know if that was part of the mix that MEDAC had spoken about.
I think that's definitely in the mix, and it came up during the town council discussion too, that with all the concern and interest in affordable housing at this time, that's a piece of property that can certainly help with that effort.
Yeah, that's not off the table at all, Valerie. That's certainly something that I would hope the developers come back with some thoughts and advice.
John Bagwell has his hand up.
Yeah, I think it's very important that the proposal be more than a quote vision, but come with some financial projections. They may be expecting the town to participate with some financial participation, and it seems like this is an ideal opportunity, perhaps, for a TIF, because this is going to produce taxes, and the taxes could be used to fund I've heard talk of a new library, cultural center, for example, and to replace the present library. But I would hope that the proposals that come back with some significant financial plan, showing some projections from the developer, rather than basically just a quote, a vision of what they see possible there. That's all.
I can send out what we did receive, what the town received from the Landings Real Estate Group, back several months ago, and it does include some financials in there, and that'll give you an idea of what we would expect to receive from anybody else that might have some interest.
That would be helpful, Ron. I would say that you go ahead and do that to the committee.
Yeah. Erin Donovan has her hand up, Bob.
Oh, Erin's with us?
Yeah, she joined. Yep.
Hi, Erin. Welcome.
Hi. Sorry, I had my camera off just to save some battery here, but to just weigh in a little bit that what I think is great about the RFI process was exactly that. We know what the goals are for the community. We know what a lot of the needs are and what the desires are, but pushing this out and getting the private contractors to bid on these is really a way for us to understand what is feasible. So certainly housing multi-use and more densely use of multi-purpose areas is important for economic development on multiple different fronts, as well as the affordable housing that has to go with that. But we need to see what the market is going to allow and what's going to be feasible. So I just wanted to weigh in. I love that Middletown has taken this approach, and I encourage more communities to do the same.
Thanks. And we'll have the benefit of the fourth economy and Rick Obermeyer working through the chamber, which is a tremendous asset to have at this point.
And
anyone else?
Terry has her hand up.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to kind of take off on the comments from Mr. Bagwell about the TIF and Ron's comments about thinking outside the box. And, I'm hoping that we get a wide range of input. And there's this concept out there. I don't know much about it, but I know it has to do with housing. It's opportunity zones. And, again, I'm hoping that we see things like, solar energy for the project, maybe some, good use of the space aerially and maybe underground for parking. So we're not taking up so much green space with blacktop. I'm looking for a lot of creative things. So it's something that Middletown can really be proud of, and it's cutting edge. COVID has shown us that, technology is going to be a part of our world. And this should definitely reflect what the predictions are for our immediate future. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you.
And Leanna.
Anybody else?
Leanna.
Leanna?
Yes, Erin, are you still on?
She's there.
I am, yes.
Okay, great. What do you think about a second innovation center there? Because I know we need housing and with equity and all, but I have robotics there, and between the rescue trucks that come by and the fire trucks, the police, the amount of traffic in the wintertime, so you can imagine. I'm not sure that's all a safe space for low income where you have lots of children close by, but I'm thinking more about like an innovation, a second one that you could add the high-tech STEM area and make it more that, and have the library there along like with the STEM center connected to the library. So that's what I'm thinking, and I'll write something to Paul and Sean about it. But I'm not quite sure that low income housing is the best thing for that area. It's just, I'm worried about the safety, and it's just too noisy to have families there.
Sure. When we talk about housing, the housing shortage from the chamber's perspective and economic development, we're specifically talking about the workforce housing. So those mid-level career and mid-management levels versus the low to moderate income. That is really the biggest gap from our perspective, from a chamber's perspective, right, that we see in the region. So when we are talking about different types of housing opportunities or mixed use development, we're definitely looking at what type of commercial space can be, sort of on the bottom, and then what type of housing above. There are other models and other communities that have studio opportunities or, smaller footprint for condominiums or single apartment type that can offer opportunities for professionals, young professionals and mid-level management to actually live and work in their place. I do think that the co-working type of atmosphere we'll see an uptick in that once we get back to normal. We did have a big individuals from the urban centers into our region because of the quality of life and place. So remote work capabilities are enhanced, and we have that skill set. So making sure we have enough opportunities on the island to access those types of opportunities are going to be important. But then there's sort of that next stage too. So it's not just remote workers who are looking for 2 or 3 days to work, but it's the entrepreneurship that's going to bud out of COVID, because people either switch gears or determined, their first primary job is not sufficient, or long-term viability has been in question. So we'll see a lot of entrepreneurship, I think, spin off. And so I think we will need some places for that. What that looks like though, I mean, we are on the ground level. We just don't, right? It could be, be quick. It could be long-term and like generational changes that happen. But then there's that other piece too, where we need some sort of incubator space where we have 1 or 2 individuals, prototype or a concept, and then they start to grow, and they need that second level stage of workplace where it's a team of 5 who are growing and creating a prototype or whatever it may be. So unfortunately though, I don't know exactly the what or the when around any of that. Just theoretically, it seems like that's where we're going. But that's why the RFP process is really interesting, especially 1 year later after it was introduced, because we know what was proposed initially, but now people are thinking and looking at things a little bit differently. So it'll be interesting to see what the proposals look like that come forth. And private sector organizations that will be delving into this and looking at the feasibility of their different programs are much better equipped than I am to determine what will be successful and what not. But certainly I think those concepts should be considered.
Okay.
And Erin, I was just going to say, Aaron, that there is a distinction and a difference between affordable housing and low-income housing. They're two different
Right.
species. And I think what Aaron is talking about as a result of the pandemic is affordable housing for
Right.
people who want to live here and work here as well.
Right, and then we could also have a library with a, say, like a STEM, addition to it,
Yeah, you know,
for the high tech. That's what I'm thinking. Have it all in one, but yet still have our library there and along with a good STEM center.
I think
And also that could be introduced in the RFP.
I think a real
ahead.
deep analysis of how the labor market has been impacted and will be impacted for the long term is necessary so that we can determine what those future needs are. But certainly, I think we all recognize the vulnerability of many of our residents who are in hospitality and tourism, and also of the businesses themselves that were in there. So not being so heavily reliant on that as our primary, industry sector is going to be important. Diversifying that, figuring out what those on-ramps and off-ramps are into the different sectors that make up the broader blue economy are going to be important. And once that is like better understood, because we're still in the middle of all of this, right?
Right. Oh, we are.
I think we're going to see who has been displaced from their positions that will never be replaced, who has left the region, because we have like 2,500 people who have just exited the workforce in Newport and Bristol counties. We have 4,500 people who are on unemployment, and understanding the why of who left and what we can do to replace them or get them back into the labor workforce is still up in the air. We don't have those answers yet.
Right.
So
And then-
to grow
and
still,
then I see low income as within our neighborhoods. And, for the equity question of, getting everyone together. Okay.
Is there, okay,
Thank
fine,
you.
thank you, Leanne and Aaron. Anyone else wish to inquire, because we're right up against the hour. And as usual, we have more yet to do and we're coming to a close. But is there any other final comment on this that we should receive? If not, Ron, in view of the restrictions that we have, what do we have left on the agenda? And is it something that is important that we discuss, or do we just put it over to the June 9th meeting?
I think the only thing I would bring up is the next item on the agenda, which is the Atlantic Beach District overlay zoning. That item was continued by the town council. It was on for public hearing at their last meeting, but there was a desire to dedicate more time to that discussion and allow for more, presentation and more public input. So the council has scheduled a special meeting on June 15th at 6 p.m. At which point that would be the public hearing on the proposed zoning amendment. I'll be providing a brief presentation, introduction to what the proposed ordinance consists of, and then obviously public input and council discussion. So there'll be plenty of time. That'll be the only item, as far as I know anyway,
Okay.
that'll be the only item on that evening's agenda.
Has the membership of MEDAC been provided with the form of amendment to the zoning ordinance, which would include permitted and non-permitted uses?
Yeah, it's probably been a while since the last time I sent it out, so I can do that again.
Could you redo that just to refresh everyone's recollection?
Sure.
And be in a position to be conversant on June 15th if they want to participate.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
That's really all I have that I wanted to mention.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about streetscapes, and potential undergrounding of overhead wires, and the Middletown High School student access to trade and technical trade and education. We can continue that, not to lose it, on June 9th. That's acceptable to everyone.
Yes,
That's fine.
Okay?
fine.
Is there any final comments for the good of the order before we unzoom?
One last thing.
Yes, John.
Ron sent out a proposal from David Dittman and I. We're going to bring before MEDAC dealing with getting unregistered STRs. David and I have withdrawn that. We're simply going to send it in the form of a memo to Sean tomorrow from David and from me.
That's on short-term rentals, right?
That's right. So just
Yeah.
ignore that particular document, that proposal.
Oh.
It's not, it came out at some point early today from Ron. Just throw it away. David Dipp and I are going to send it directly to Sean. If he likes the idea, fine. If he doesn't like the idea or he doesn't have the time, that's okay also. So whatever. But it's really a Sean call.
Okay, very good, John. Thank you. Well, that being the case, I want to thank everyone for participating and looking forward to seeing everyone next month. And in the interim, if there's need for Ron to keep in touch with us as to where we are with some of these matters and the development of the same, we'll do that by email anyway. Okay? Motion to adjourn,
So
Second
moved.
moved.
moved and seconded. I think it'll be unanimous. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. So,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
Take
Motion
care,
passed.
everyone.
Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
Take
Take
it
care.
easy.
Good job.